is now leading the battle for truth and accountability. Here's KCTV5 investigative reporter Angie Racono.
This is Scott Welsch. He's retired U.S. Army intelligence, and he's from our area. But for 6 months, he was stationed at Karshi-Kanabad Air Base in Uzbekistan. And the soldiers there called it K2. K2 was a hub of operations for the U.S. in the fight against terrorism because it's so close to Afghanistan. But soldiers like Scott are now going public with allegations of cancer and a cover-up by the U.S. government.
You'd stomp and the dust would just fly up and get in your nose, and I mean, who knows what you're breathing.
Scott Welsch says young soldiers were focused on war.
You had a mission to do. You didn't think about it then, but now that we're back and we're all coming down with everything, you're thinking, oh, that was something to think about.
Soldiers at K2 coped with heat and freezing temperatures. Rain meant instant floods. They'd snicker and send out floats. But the warning signs were literally there.
And that was right by the PT track, right where we ran PT. You know, you'd run laps and just run right by that sign. You'd think, oh, okay, there's a sign.
There was a sign by the pond, too. Soldiers laughed and called it Skittles Pond.
Because of the colors, yeah.
Scott snapped several photos because the color was so intense. He took photos of the tent city, and this picture after a giant hole appeared at the front of his 6-man tent. A pellet solved the problem.
I mean, a gigantic hole. And we're like, that's strange. So we just started using the back tent flap. And we didn't ask any questions because we just had to, continue mission and go to work do what we do every day.
Scott was stationed here for 6 months when he was in his early 30s.
I thought I'd just come home and carry on life as usual. You get on that plane in the middle of the night to come home and you think, okay, I'll just go home and go back to work and everything will be normal.
Scott says that didn't happen. His life changed. He's now 51 and dealing with chronic problems.
Disc degeneration, headaches, daily headaches, skin rashes, all the time. Kidney stones. I get kidney stones constantly.
Scott was diagnosed with thyroid cancer in 2013 and had surgery. 2 other close buddies he served with have thyroid problems too. He eventually found a Facebook group of K2 veterans. Many are sick and blame K2. Thousands of members have joined the online group.
Cancer is the biggest. Cancer is huge.
10% self-report some type of cancer. 2 soldiers started this closed Facebook page. 1 is now dead.
It was eye-opening. It was pretty huge.
Scott's new mission is to track reported illnesses and deaths in a spreadsheet.
We had no protective gear whatsoever.
So far, he's learned 12 K2 soldiers have died, 10 from cancer.
We had no respirators, no anything.
Other soldiers are digging for documents. Some are classified. They claim those show K2 is clearly more than an old army base. It was a toxic dump site for the Russians.
They buried nuclear waste, chemicals, fuels, mustard gas. It was just where they buried all their excess.
The Department of Defense acknowledges K2 has a history in this report sent to doctors. Soldiers reported a bad smell and black goo at the site. This document blames a leaking Soviet-era underground fuel distribution system. It acknowledges asbestos and low-level radioactive processed uranium in the soil and trace amounts of nerve and blister agents in some testing, but points out more recent tests are negative and claims those early tests were likely false positives. So it advises doctors to show concerned patients respect and appreciation. Thank them for that service. The conclusion is to advise veterans there is no health consequence. The protective risk control measures were effective. Reports show the U.S. government spread clean soil on top of contamination and believes that capped any toxins. Soldiers call it a literal cover-up that didn't work due to floods and strong winds.
The VA looks at it as, well, it's not a hazardous site, so we aren't going to give them benefits because the government hasn't declared it a hazardous site.
Scott and his fellow soldiers say they want the truth about K2 and say secret documents reveal the government absolutely knew of the dangers and did little to warn or protect soldiers.
The government is not releasing anything about the area because the government doesn't want to release information about the area.
Soldiers like Scott are now battling for accountability. This group is making progress. Earlier this month, the House Oversight Committee demanded more information about K2. They point to a limited U.S. Army study which shows if you compare the soldiers at K2 to soldiers stationed in Korea, there is elevated levels of lymphatic cancer. In fact, it's about 5 times the amount. Angie Racono, KCTV5 News.